Officer Vance Harlan's voice dripped with disgust. "Get out of my neighborhood. You people do not belong here." He slammed his palm on the roof so hard the car shook. The man inside did not flinch. Both hands remained on the wheel, back straight, silent. "I said get out." Harlan leaned in, his nose almost touching the glass. "You make me sick, just looking at you." The man turned his head slowly and calmly, the way someone does when they have heard it all before. "Officer, I would advise you to reconsider your next move." Harlan laughed. "Or what?" He tapped his badge. "I am the law here, boy, and I say you are done." The man exhaled, quiet and steady. What happened next changed everything, and honestly, this officer had no idea who he had just picked a fight with. Man, he really picked the wrong one. Let us get into it. Let me take you back just a short while before that moment. Sycamore Falls, Virginia, a small suburban town south of Richmond. Population somewhere around 62,000. The kind of place where people wave at each other from their driveways. Where the farmers' market runs every Saturday morning. Where support our troops banners hang from every other lamppost like wallpaper. Nice town, quiet town, safe town. At least that depends on who you ask. Because underneath all that charm, the Sycamore Falls Police Department had a problem. And it was not small. 3 excessive force complaints in recent years. One of them settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. And the number of officers disciplined for any of it? 0. Not a single one. Every complaint is reviewed internally. Every complaint dismissed. Case closed. Move on. Now remember that because it matters later. The man at the center of this story is Officer Vance Harlan, white, in his early 40s, 11 years on the force, built like someone who never missed a gym session but skipped every sensitivity training. His colleagues described him as someone who does not back down. His supervisors called him overzealous but effective. Overzealous. Hold on to that word. You're going to hear it again. Harlan had 2 prior complaints on file, both filed by black motorists. Both were dismissed after internal review. One man said Harlan pulled him over for no reason and searched his car without consent. The other said Harlan called him suspicious for walking through a parking lot in broad daylight. Neither complaint went anywhere. The system reviewed itself and found nothing wrong. And there was one more detail about Harlan that most people in the department knew, but nobody talked about. His body camera had a habit of malfunctioning during confrontational stops. Funny how that works. The camera is fine all day long, and then the moment things get heated, it glitches every single time. But this time, this one particular Sunday evening, that camera stayed on every second, every word, every sound, and that changes everything. Now the other man, I am not going to tell you his name yet. Not his title, not his profession, nothing. Because on that Sunday evening, none of that mattered to Vance Harlan. All Harlan saw was a black man in a dark blue Lincoln sedan driving through a neighborhood that Harlan had decided did not belong to him. Here is what I will tell you. The man was in his mid-50s, tall, broad shoulders. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit, not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because he had just come from an event in Richmond. What kind of event? I will get to that. His wife sat in the passenger seat. Her name was Lydia. She was an attorney, sharp, composed, the kind of woman who could dismantle your argument before you finished your sentence. They were a short drive from home, gospel music playing low on the stereo, Lydia scrolling through notes on her phone. A Sunday evening like any other, except the man had a habit. Every time he got into a car, he tucked something into his inside jacket pocket, a small leather holder. He kept it close always, the way some people keep their phone or their keys. He kept this. It was instinct. It was routine. And in a short while, that small leather holder was going to be the most important object in this entire story. It was going to sit on the hood of his own car in plain sight, inches away from the officer who detained him. And that officer was going to ignore it completely. But we are not there yet. Right now, the sun is dropping behind the tree line, the streets are turning gold, and Vance Harlan is sitting in his patrol cruiser at an intersection watching every car that passes. And then he sees it. A dark blue Lincoln sedan, tinted windows, clean, moving at exactly the speed limit. Harlan sits up straighter, his hand moves to the gear shift, and 2 lives are about to collide in a way that neither one of them expected, but only one of them was ready for. So what made Harlan follow that car? What was it about a clean sedan on a quiet Sunday evening that set him off? The answer to that question is the whole point of this story. Harlan pulled out from the intersection and followed the Lincoln. No lights, no siren, just following. A few blocks, no traffic violation, no broken taillight, no illegal turn, no expired tags, nothing. Just a dark sedan driven by a black man in a neighborhood that Vance Harlan had already decided he did not belong in. A few blocks is not a traffic stop. A few blocks is a decision. At the end of those blocks, Harlan hit his lights, red and blue flashing across the quiet suburban street. The Lincoln slowed, signal on, pulled to the curb, smooth, calm. The kind of stop that tells you the driver has done absolutely nothing wrong and knows it. Harlan stepped out of his cruiser. He did not rush. He walked slow, deliberate, one hand resting on his belt near his holster, not on it, near it, close enough to remind you it was there. He approached the driver's side window and tapped the roof, twice, hard, license and registration, now. No good evening, no sir, no explanation, no reason given, just a command. The man inside the Lincoln had both hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2. He turned his head slightly and spoke, calm, measured, the kind of voice that fills a courtroom without ever raising its volume. Good evening, officer. May I ask why I have been stopped? Harlan did not blink. I said license and registration. Do not make me repeat myself. I heard you, officer. I am asking why I have been pulled over. Harlan leaned closer, his face inches from the window. You want to do this the hard way? Fine. We will do it the hard way. Now, the man did what anyone would do when an officer asks for identification. He reached, slowly, carefully. His right hand moved toward the inside pocket of his jacket, the pocket where he always kept his wallet, the pocket where he kept that leather holder. He did not lunge. He did not grab. He moved the way a man moves when he knows that every gesture matters, when he knows that the wrong twitch could cost him his life. It did not matter. Harlan stepped back. His hand went to his holster, on it now, not near it, and his voice turned into something sharp and loud. Hands! Let me see your hands! Do not move! The man froze, his right hand suspended in midair, inches from his own pocket. Lydia, his wife, gasped from the passenger seat. Not a scream, a gasp. The sound of a woman who has seen this play out before and knows exactly where it goes. Officer, the man said, still calm, still steady. I am reaching for my identification. That is what you asked me to do. I did not tell you to reach. I told you to show me your hands. There is a difference. There is not. But in that moment, on that street, with that badge and that holster, Harlan got to decide what words meant. Moments later, backup arrived. A second cruiser pulled up behind Harlan's. 2 officers stepped out. Sergeant Reed Hollis, Harlan's shift supervisor, 15 years on the force, a man who had built his career on one simple principle: do not contradict your officers in front of civilians. And beside him, Officer Brooke Sutton, young, still new enough to feel uncomfortable, but too junior to say anything about it. Hollis walked up to Harlan. What do we got? Harlan did not look away from the Lincoln. Suspicious vehicle. The driver is being non-compliant. Hollis glanced at the car, at the man in the suit, at the woman in the passenger seat, at the clean sedan parked perfectly against the curb. Something flickered across his face, maybe doubt, maybe recognition that this did not look right. But whatever it was, it lasted briefly. Then it was gone. All right, your call. 2 words, your call. That is all it took. Hollis had just handed Harlan a blank check, and they both knew it. Sutton stood off to the side. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Right for. Her hand was nowhere near her weapon. Her eyes moved between Harlan and the man in the car and back again. She said nothing. Harlan turned back to the window. Step out of the vehicle now. Officer, on what basis am I being detained? I have a right to know. Harlan smiled. Not a real smile, the kind of smile that tells you the person behind it has already decided how this ends, on the basis that I am the law here, and I said, get out. The man paused. He looked at Lydia. She looked back at him. Something passed between them. Not words, not a plan, just the quiet understanding of 2 people who have navigated moments like this together more times than anyone should have to. He opened the door, slowly. He stepped out. He stood a full few inches taller than Harlan, suit pressed, shoulders back. He did not raise his voice. He did not clench his fists. He did not give Harlan a single reason. And it did not matter, because Harlan did not need a reason. He never did. Hands on the hood. Spread your feet. The man complied, hands flat on the warm metal of his own car, on his own street, in front of his own neighbors. Harlan patted him down, rough, not careful. The kind of search that is designed to humiliate, not to find anything. And during that search, he reached into the jacket pocket, the same pocket the man had been reaching for, and pulled out a leather wallet. He flipped it open, glanced at the driver's license, tossed it on the hood like it was junk mail. And then, right there, in his hands, was the leather credential holder, small, dark, tucked beside the wallet. Harlan looked at it, turned it over once, and set it on the hood, face down, unopened. He did not open it. He did not care what was inside, because he had already decided everything he needed to know about this man. And nothing inside a leather case was going to change his mind. Remember that. The credential holder right there on the hood, inches from his fingers. The answer to every question Harlan should have been asking. And he set it down and walked away. "You match a description," Harlan said. "Suspect in a vehicle theft ring operating in this area." The man turned his head slightly. "What description?" "Black male, dark sedan, silence. The kind of silence that has weight, that presses down on your chest. That is not a description, officer. That is a demographic." Harlan's jaw tightened. He did not respond to that. The passenger door opened. Lydia stepped out, heels on pavement, briefcase in hand. "Officer, I am an attorney. My husband has complied with every single instruction you have given. You have not articulated a lawful basis for this detention. I am advising you clearly and formally to either state your probable cause or release him, right now." Harlan turned to her. "Ma'am, get back in the vehicle or you will be detained too." Hollis stepped forward, not toward Harlan, toward Lydia. He put his hand on her elbow, firm, guiding, the way you would steer a child away from something, and pushed her back toward the car. She pulled her arm free, hard. "Do not touch me. I have committed no crime." Hollis said nothing. He just stood there, blocking her path, a wall of silence and authority. Sutton watched from the side. She opened her mouth, closed it. Then she leaned toward Hollis and said, barely above a whisper, "Sarge, should not we maybe just run his ID first?" Hollis did not even look at her. "Harlan has got this." 3 words. And with those 3 words, the last safety net disappeared. Harlan reached for his handcuffs. The click of metal was the loudest sound on that street. "I am detaining you pending identity verification." The man, still calm, still measured, still speaking in that low, steady voice that had not cracked once, said, "I strongly advise you to reconsider what you are about to do." Is that a threat? No. It is a professional courtesy. Professional courtesy, a phrase that lawyers use with other lawyers, that judges use with other judges, a phrase that should have stopped Harlan dead in his tracks if he had had the awareness to hear it for what it was. He did not. The handcuffs went on, behind the back, tight. A man in his mid-50s in a 3-piece suit handcuffed on his own street, in front of his own house, while his wife stood a short distance away with tears she refused to let fall. And the neighbors, several of them now, stood on their lawns and their porches watching. One of them lifted a phone and started recording. And Lydia, look at Lydia. Her face was not fear. It was not shock. It was something worse. It was exhaustion, the deep, bone-level exhaustion of a woman who has watched her husband be dignified in the face of this exact humiliation before, who is tired, so deeply tired of his dignity being required just to survive a Sunday drive home. That face, that exhaustion, that is the image that stays with you. Now, I gotta stop here because this man did everything right. Everything. Hands on the wheel, calm voice, full compliance. And it still was not enough. That is not a bad day. That is something broken. And y'all, it is about to get so much worse. So now we have got a man in handcuffs, a wife pushed aside, a sergeant who signed off on silence, a junior officer who tried to speak and got shut down, and a credential holder sitting face down on the hood of a car holding an answer that nobody bothered to look for. The question is, what happens when they take him in? And what is waiting for Vance Harlan on the other side of this night that he cannot possibly see coming? Harlan opened the back door of his cruiser and guided the man inside. No hand on the head to protect him from the doorframe. No seatbelt. Just a shove, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to say, "I am in charge." The door slammed shut. Through the rear window, the man sat perfectly still, hands cuffed behind his back, suit creased at the shoulders, eyes forward. He did not look at Harlan. He did not look at the neighbors with their phones raised. He just sat there, like a man who had been in rooms far more important than the back of a patrol car, simply waiting for the world to catch up. Harlan pulled away from the curb. No siren, just a slow, satisfied drive toward the precinct, like a hunter carrying his trophy home. Behind him, Lydia. She did not scream. She did not collapse. She walked to the Lincoln, sat down, closed the door, picked up her phone. One call. Briefly. Calm. Precise. She did not call a lawyer. She did not call the news. She called someone else entirely. And I will tell you who, but not yet. Just know this. That short call set something in motion that Vance Harlan could not stop, could not outrun, and would not see coming until it was already too late. Then Lydia followed the cruiser to the precinct. At the station, the man was brought through the side entrance. Booking area, fluorescent lights, the smell of burnt coffee and floor cleaner, a place designed to make you feel small. They fingerprinted him, left hand, right hand. They photographed him, front, side, the camera flash bouncing off his suit jacket, a mugshot of a man who had done nothing. He answered every question, name, date of birth, address, not a single word of protest. The booking officer typed the information into the system, and then he stopped. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, his eyes locked on the screen. Something was there, something that made his face go flat. He looked at the man, looked at the screen, back at the man. He said nothing, finished processing in silence. But his hands moved faster now, and he would not make eye contact again. Remember that. The booking officer saw something and chose to stay quiet. Meanwhile, the break room. Harlan sat at a folding table with coffee and a blank incident report. Hollis sat across from him, relaxed. Two guys wrapping up a routine night. Harlan wrote, "Let me tell you what the report said. Observed suspicious vehicle in residential area. Vehicle match general description in ongoing auto theft investigation. Driver made a furtive movement toward his waistband. Driver was non-compliant and became verbally confrontational. Furtive movement, non-compliant. Verbally confrontational. Every word was a lie, and there was a body camera that proved it. But Harlan had written reports like this before. Every time they stopped, every time the system read his words and moved on. Hollis read it, picked up a pen, signed the bottom. Supervisor endorsement. Done. 2 men. 1 lie. Official paper. Stamped with authority. The man was placed in a holding cell. Metal bench. Concrete walls. He sat down, folded his hands in his lap. Still in his suit, still composed. He did not pace, did not pound the door, did not ask for a lawyer. He did not need to, because, and this is the part that will haunt you, he was the system they thought was going to protect them. That sounds like a metaphor. It is not. Out front, Lydia walked through the precinct doors. She did not go to the desk. She did not ask for a complaint form. She walked straight to the desk officer. "I need your watch commander, now." "Ma'am, the watch commander is unavailable." "Then make him available, because in a short while, you are going to wish someone with authority had talked to me first." She sat down, opened her briefcase, crossed her legs, and waited. Shortly, the precinct phone rang. The desk officer picked up. Routine. Probably a noise complaint, a lost dog, a neighbor dispute. The usual Sunday night calls. It was not. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional. The kind of tone that does not ask, it informs. "This is Deputy Marshal Donovan with the United States Marshal Service. You are currently holding a sitting federal judge in your facility. His name is Marcus Whitaker, United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. I need immediate confirmation of his status, and I need your commanding officer on this line shortly." The desk officer's hand stopped moving. His pen slipped from his fingers and hit the counter. He did not respond right away. He just stared at the phone like it had turned into something he had never seen before. "Sir, are you still there?" "Yes, I am here. Hold, please." He put the call on hold, stood up. His chair scraped the floor loud enough to echo through the lobby. Lydia, still sitting in the waiting area, looked up from her briefcase. She did not say anything. She did not need to. The look on her face said everything. She already knew. The desk officer walked to the break room, not walked, moved, fast, the kind of pace that falls just short of running. He pushed the door open and found Harlan and Hollis exactly where they had been for the past while. Coffee cups, Paperwork. Comfortable. The man you brought in. Harlan looked up, annoyed. What about him? He is a federal judge. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that has a sound, like the air itself just stopped. Hollis's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. His eyes locked on the desk officer, waiting for a correction, a punchline, something. It did not come. Harlan blinked. Once. Twice. That is not no. That is not right. The United States Marshal Service is online too right now, asking for our commanding officer, so I would say it is very right. Harlan's face did something it had not done all night. It changed. The smirk was gone. The confidence was gone. The swagger that had carried him from the intersection to the cruiser, to the break room, gone. Replaced by something he was not used to wearing. Fear. Hollis stood up first. He did not say a word to Harlan. He walked out of the break room and went straight to the holding area, down the hallway, past the booking desk, past the vending machines that hummed in the silence, all the way to the cell. He looked through the window, and there was Marcus Whitaker, sitting exactly where they had left him, hands folded, back straight, suit wrinkled at the shoulders, but everything else, everything, perfectly composed. The same man who had stood on his own street with his hands on the hood of his car and said nothing while they put him in cuffs. The same man, the exact same man. Except now Hollis knew who he was. Hollis opened the cell door. His mouth moved before his brain could stop it. Judge Whitaker, I am so... Marcus stood slowly, the way he did everything. He straightened his jacket, adjusted his cuffs, looked Hollis directly in the eyes. You may address me as Your Honor. Hollis swallowed. And I would like my credential holder, please. The one your officer chose not to open. That line right there. That is the one. The credential holder sitting on the hood of the car in Harlan's hands, turned over once and set down face down, unopened. The answer, right there. And he threw it away because he had already made up his mind. Hollis retrieved the personal effects, wallet, phone, and the credential holder. He brought them back to Marcus and handed them over. His hands were shaking. Marcus opened the holder himself, held it up, not for Hollis, for the camera mounted in the corner of the hallway. Inside, a golden embossed identification card. United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. A photograph, a title, an appointment confirmed by the President of the United States and ratified by the United States Senate. This was not a business card, not a membership badge, not something you order online. This was the authority of the federal judiciary, and Vance Harlan had laid it face down on the hood of a car between a tossed driver's license and a pair of handcuffs. Marcus put the holder back in his jacket pocket where it always belonged. He walked out of the holding area, down the hallway. Lydia was standing at the end of it, not sitting anymore. Standing, briefcase in one hand, and in the other, a single printed sheet of paper. She handed it to him. He looked at it. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. He folded it, put it in his breast pocket, and kept walking. Harlan was standing at the far end of the corridor. He had not moved from the spot where the desk officer had delivered the news. His face was white, his mouth slightly open, his hands at his sides doing nothing. For the first time all night, doing absolutely nothing. Marcus stopped in front of him, close, not aggressive, just close enough that Harlan could not look anywhere else. Officer Harlan. Harlan did not speak. You told me you were the law. Nothing. You were mistaken. Marcus's voice did not rise. It did not crack. It did not shake. It stayed exactly where it had been all night. Low, steady, immovable. I am the law. And you are finished. He held Harlan's gaze for a few seconds. Then he turned and walked away. Lydia beside him, shoulder to shoulder, out the front door of the precinct and into the night air. And Harlan just stood there, staring at the empty hallway, listening to their footsteps fade. By the time Marcus and Lydia reached their car, the neighbor's cell phone video from the traffic stop had already been posted online. It spread rapidly. By the next morning, every local news station in Virginia was running the same headline. Federal judge handcuffed during routine traffic stop in Sycamore Falls. There was no containing it. There was no spinning it. There was no internal review that could make this disappear. But here's the thing, and I need you to sit with this for a moment. Marcus and Lydia drove home that night. Same route, same road, past the same spot where the lights had flashed. They drove in silence. No gospel music this time. No phone. No notes. Just silence. And somewhere between the precinct and their driveway, Lydia reached over and took his hand. He had won. In every way that mattered legally, he had won. But there is a kind of wound that winning does not close, a kind of exhaustion that vindication does not touch, because the credentials saved him. The title saved him. The Senate confirmation saved him. But what about the next man on that road who does not have any of those things? That question hung in the car like smoke, and neither of them said a word. By the beginning of the week, the video had crossed millions of views. Not local anymore. National, cable news panels were already debating. Social media was on fire, and the Sycamore Falls Police Department released a statement. We are aware of the incident involving a traffic stop on Sunday evening and are conducting a thorough internal review. A thorough internal review. 4 words that usually mean one thing. We are hoping you forget, but this time forgetting was not an option, because this time the man in the video was not just a citizen. He was a federal judge with the power to make the next decade of their professional lives very, very uncomfortable. And the whole country was watching. Pastor Warren Owens, a community leader who had been raising concerns about the department for years, held a press conference outside the precinct shortly after. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern. And the only reason we are standing here today, the only reason cameras are pointed at this building, is because the victim happened to be a federal judge. What about the ones who are not? What about the names we will never know? That question landed like a stone in still water, and the ripples were already spreading. Chief Ellis Thornton had no choice. He could not wait. He could not stall. He could not bury this in paperwork and hope the news cycle moved on. So he did the one thing the department had not done in years. He opened a real investigation. Deputy Inspector Carolyn Marsh was assigned to lead it. Marsh had been with Internal Affairs for years. She was known inside the department as someone you did not want across the table from you. Not because she was cruel, but because she was thorough. She did not cut corners. She did not protect badges. She followed evidence wherever it went, even when it went somewhere uncomfortable. Marsh requested everything: body cam footage, dash cam footage, Harlan's incident report, Hollis's supervisor endorsement, dispatch logs, booking records, prior complaint files, personnel records for both officers, everything. And then she started watching. The body cam footage ran uninterrupted, unedited. For once, the camera did not malfunction. For once, every word, every gesture, every silence was captured. Harlan activates his lights. No traffic violation recorded before this moment. None. First contact. No greeting. No explanation. License and registration. Now. The man reaches for his jacket pocket. Harlan's hand goes to his holster. Hands. Do not move. I am the law here, and I said, get out. The credential holder sits on the hood. Harlan sets it down. Does not open it. Walks away. Handcuffs applied. The man is fully compliant. Has been compliant the entire time. That is how long it took to stop, search, humiliate, and handcuff a federal judge who had committed no crime, violated no law, and offered no resistance. Marsh watched the footage several times. Then she pulled the dash cam. It confirmed what the body cam showed. No traffic violation before the stop. No erratic driving. No expired registration. Nothing. Harlan followed a clean car for a few blocks and then pulled it over. Next, the dispatch logs. Marsh checked for any be on the lookout matching the description Harlan had given. Black male, dark sedan, vehicle theft ring. Nothing. No be on the lookout. No dispatch call. No reported stolen vehicle matching that make or model anywhere in the county that night. The description Harlan used did not come from dispatch. It did not come from a report. It came from nowhere. He made it up. Then Marsh opened Harlan's incident report, and she read it next to the footage line by line. The report said driver made a furtive movement toward his waistband. The footage showed a man slowly reaching for his inside jacket pocket after being asked for identification. The report said driver was non-compliant with verbal commands. The footage showed a man who kept his hands on the steering wheel, answered every question calmly, and complied with every instruction. The report said driver became verbally confrontational. The footage showed a man who asked politely, twice, why he had been stopped. 3 claims, 3 lies, all signed off by a supervisor. Marsh pulled Hollis's endorsement. His signature was at the bottom of every page. Clean, confident, no notes, no questions, no flags raised. 2 men, 1 lie, official paper. And then something Marsh did not expect. Officer Brooke Sutton requested a meeting. She came alone. No union representative, no attorney, just her. A written statement and the look of someone who had not slept. Sutton sat across from Marsh and confirmed everything the footage showed. Marcus Whitaker was calm from the first second to the last. Harlan initiated every escalation. Hollis endorsed it without question. And when Sutton suggested quietly to Hollis that they should run the man's ID before escalating, Hollis shut her down with 3 words. Harlan has got this. But Sutton did not stop there. This was not the first time. Marsh leaned forward. Sutton described 2 other stops she had been present for in recent time. Both involved black drivers. Both followed the same pattern. No clear violation. Aggressive contact. Vague justifications. Neither resulted in a complaint. One driver was a young college student who was too shaken to do anything but drive home. The other was a father of 3 who told Sutton afterward, off the record, that filing a complaint against a police officer in a town like Sycamore Falls was just asking for more trouble. Marsh wrote it all down. Why did not you report this before? Sutton paused, looked at her hands. Because I told myself it was not that bad, that maybe I was reading it wrong, that Harlan was just intense. She looked up, but I was not reading it wrong. I knew it then, and I know it now. I just did not want to be the one. Marsh nodded, did not judge, wrote it down, and moved on. Next, Harlan's interview. He arrived with his union representative, sat down across from Marsh with his arms crossed and his jaw tight. He still had the posture of a man who believed he had done nothing wrong. Marsh started simple. Walk me through the stop. Harlan did, almost word for word from his report. Suspicious vehicle. General description, furtive movement, non-compliance. Marsh listened. Let him finish. Then she asked one question. What dispatch call were you responding to? It was not a specific call. It was general awareness. General awareness of what? There has been auto theft activity in the area. Can you cite the report? Silence. Can you cite any be on the lookout matching that vehicle? More silence. Officer Harlan, there is no dispatch record, no be on the lookout, and no stolen vehicle report matching a dark blue Lincoln sedan in Sycamore Falls or the surrounding county on the night in question. So, I am going to ask you again, why did you stop that car? Harlan shifted in his seat, his arms uncrossed, his hands went flat on the table. I used my professional judgment. Your professional judgment. A man in a 3-piece suit driving with his wife in his own neighborhood at the speed limit on a Sunday evening. And your professional judgment told you what exactly? That he was a car thief? Harlan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The vehicle had tinted windows. I could not see. The body cam shows you approached the driver's side window and made visual contact immediately. You saw his face. You saw his suit. You saw his wife within the first moments. Nothing. So, I will ask once more, on what basis did you make this stop? Nothing. Marsh let the silence sit. Then she moved on. Hollis's interview was shorter, but in some ways worse. Hollis did not lie outright. He deflected. Every answer was a step sideways. I trusted my officer's assessment. I was not present for the initial contact. I was there in a support capacity. Marsh let him talk. Then she opened her file. Sergeant Hollis, you signed off on a report that described a fully compliant civilian as non-compliant. You physically redirected his wife, a licensed attorney, without cause or consent. You dismissed a junior officer's suggestion to verify the subject's identity before escalating, and at no point during the encounter did you question, challenge, or override any decision made by Officer Harlan. She closed the file. At what point did your support capacity include questioning anything? Hollis stared at the table. He had no answer. Because there was no answer, he did not question it because he never intended to. He was there to back Harlan up, not to supervise him, not to protect the public. Just to back him up. And that silence, that complicity, that willingness to stand behind a lie and call it procedure was the infrastructure that made officers like Harlan possible. Marsh compiled her report. When it landed on Chief Ellis Thornton's desk, it was dozens of pages long, and every page pointed in the same direction. Officer Vance Harlan conducted a traffic stop without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. His incident report contained material falsehoods directly contradicted by body cam and dash cam footage. The stop constituted a violation of the Fourth Amendment rights of Marcus and Lydia Whitaker. Harlan's prior complaint history, combined with Officer Sutton's testimony, indicated a pattern of racially motivated policing. Sergeant Reed Hollis failed in his supervisory duty by endorsing a false report and failing to de-escalate a situation that required de-escalation. Marsh's recommendation was clear: termination for Harlan, suspension and demotion for Hollis, department-wide retraining, overhaul of the internal complaint review process, establishment of a civilian oversight board. The report used one word to describe Harlan's pattern of behavior, the same word his own supervisor had used years earlier to praise him: overzealous, except now it was not a compliment. It was a finding, an official, documented, career-ending finding. Funny how the same word can mean two completely different things depending on who is finally paying attention. Chief Ellis Thornton read the report. He finished it in one sitting. Then he read it again. By the next day, he made his decision, not because he wanted to, because he had to, because a sitting federal judge could pursue criminal charges under federal civil rights statutes, because the body cam footage was playing on a loop on every news channel in the state, because millions of people had watched it online and the number was still climbing, and because the report sitting on his desk left him exactly zero room to do what the department had always done before: nothing. Harlan was called in first. The meeting lasted minutes. Thornton sat on one side of the table. Marsh sat beside him. Harlan sat across from them with his union representative, who said almost nothing. Thornton kept it short. Terminated. Effective immediately. Badge and service weapon to be surrendered before leaving the building. No appeal recommendation. No transfer option, no quiet resignation to save face. Done. Harlan did not argue. He did not shout. He did not slam his fist on the table. He just sat there, the same way Marcus Whitaker had sat in the holding cell, except without the composure, without the dignity, without any of it. He stood up, unclipped his badge, set it on the table, placed his service weapon beside it, walked out. The hallway was empty. He passed the break room where he had laughed and written his lies. He passed the booking desk where the officer had seen the truth on a screen and said nothing. He walked through the front door of the Sycamore Falls precinct for the last time. Outside, 2 news vans were parked across the street. Harlan did not stop, did not speak. He got into his personal vehicle, sat behind the wheel for minutes without starting the engine. Then he drove away. He told a man he was the law, and the law disagreed. Hollis came next. Suspension without pay, demotion from sergeant to patrol officer, supervisory authority permanently revoked. His career was not over, but the version of it he had built, the comfortable version where silence was a strategy and complicity was invisible, that version was finished. Hollis accepted the terms without a word, signed the paperwork, left the building through the back entrance. No cameras, no statement. Just a man carrying the weight of everything he chose not to do. The legal aftermath moved fast. Marcus and Lydia filed a federal civil rights lawsuit under Section 1983 against the city of Sycamore Falls, Officer Harlan, and Sergeant Hollis. The case never went to trial. The city settled shortly for an undisclosed amount, but the money was not the point. The settlement included a consent decree, and the consent decree had teeth. Mandatory bias training for every officer every year, revised stop and detain protocols requiring documented reasonable suspicion before any traffic stop, an independent civilian review board with authority to investigate complaints and recommend discipline, and an early intervention tracking system flagging officers with multiple complaints for mandatory review before the next complaint became the next headline. Structural change, not just punishment. Prevention. Officer Brooke Sutton was not disciplined. Marsh's report noted her full cooperation and cited her as a positive example of internal accountability. She did not speak up on that street. She knew it. Everyone knew it. But she spoke up after, and Marsh made sure that mattered. Sutton transferred to the Community Policing Unit. Within months, she was working directly with the new Civilian Review Board. The officer, who had been too junior to say anything, was now sitting at the table where decisions were made. It did not erase what happened on Linden Road. Nothing could. But it was a start, And Marcus Whitaker, he released a written statement. No press conference, no interviews, just words on paper. The tool he had trusted his entire career. The statement said he did not seek this confrontation, that he recognized his position gave him protections most people in his community do not have, that the reforms were a beginning, not an ending. He returned to the bench the following Monday morning. His first case that day, a civil rights matter, a different plaintiff, a different city, the same story. He put on his robe, picked up his gavel, and went back to work, because that is what justice does. It does not stop. It does not rest. It shows up on Monday morning and tries again. Let me take you back to where this started. A quiet street, a Sunday evening, red and blue lights flashing across a dark sedan. One officer, one assumption, one word, boy, aimed at a man whose title carried the weight of the federal government behind it. Marcus Whitaker had the credential, the robe, the gavel, years on the federal bench, a confirmation vote by the United States Senate, and none of that, not a single piece of it, prevented what happened to him that night. It only ensured there were consequences after. That is the part that stays with me, because the system did not protect Marcus Whitaker on Linden Road. His title did, his wife's phone call did, the body camera that happened to stay on did, the neighbor who happened to be recording did. Remove any one of those things. Any one. And this story ends differently, quietly, without a headline, without a report, without reform. And that means somewhere tonight, on some other quiet street, in some other small town, the same thing is happening to someone who does not have a credential in his jacket pocket, someone whose wife is not an attorney, someone whose neighbor is not recording, someone who will drive home if they get to drive home and tell no one. But here is what else is true. Sycamore Falls changed. Not perfectly, not overnight, but it changed. Pastor Warren Owens's community forum became a monthly event. The first meeting had hundreds of people. The sixth had more. The Civilian Review Board published its first quarterly report within months, including additional excessive force findings that led to corrective action. 2 cases that would have been buried under the old system, exposed under the new one. Officer Sutton stood at a regional law enforcement conference months later and talked about intervention culture, about the cost of silence, about what it means to wear a badge and still choose courage over comfort. Change does not happen in one night. It happens in the morning after, and the morning after that. Remember the intersection on Linden Road? It is still there. Pavement, trees, kids on bicycles. Nothing special. But on the community center bulletin board 2 blocks away, there is a flyer. First meeting of the Sycamore Falls Civilian Review Board. Open to the public. All voices welcome. That flyer did not exist before. It exists now because one man sat in a holding cell with his hands folded and waited for the system to remember what it was supposed to be. Okay, so like this whole story, I made it up. It is not real. But bro, the way my chest got tight writing it, that part is real. Because stuff like this actually happens out there. And most times ain't nobody filming. Ain't no badge to flash. That just, yeah, that hits different. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are not subscribed yet, you know what to do. I will see you in the next one.